Hey, welcome back, guys. Today we're in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we're inside of the Metairie Cemetery. And today I'm going to show you the Army of Tennessee mausoleum. This was the Army of Tennessee Louisiana Division. And right behind me is Albert Sidney Johnston on top of his horse, Fire Eater. And I'll do a little walk around, but I'm going to show you some of this first. So, Army of Tennessee. Army of Tennessee, Louisiana Division. Take a look inside here. So I'll read you off what it says on one of the stones here. It says, organized by the surviving Louisiana soldiers, Army of Tennessee at New Orleans, April 6, 1877. Then right here we have Pierre Gustave Toutant Beauregard, or P.G.T. Beauregard, who was a Creole man from right here in Louisiana and would serve in the Army of Tennessee, Louisiana's division. We'll go walk around here, show you the other side of this. Sitting on top of this big hill. Better view of Albert Sidney Johnston. So, who was the Army of Tennessee? Who fell in the Louisiana Division? Who was P.G.T. Beauregard? And who was Albert Sidney Johnston? So stay tuned and I'll tell you all about the Army of Tennessee, why this was built here. The Army of Tennessee was the Confederacy's primary fighting force in the Western Theater. Generally, their geographic operational areas stretched from the Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River. By 1865, they also operated in South Carolina and North Carolina. Defense of Department No. 2, also known as the Western Theater, was shared with the Confederate Army of Mississippi. Early in the war, the Army was stationed in northern Tennessee and tasked with protecting the Tennessee-Kentucky border. They eventually succumbed to the Federal Army and Navy forces at Mill Springs in January and Forts Henry and Donelson in February of 1862. After these successive defeats in Tennessee, the Army regrouped in Corinth, Mississippi, under General Albert Sidney Johnston as the Army of Mississippi. On April 6, 1862, it made a surprise attack on the Union's Army of the Tennessee under the command of General Ulysses S. Grant at Pittsburgh Landing, Tennessee. Later known as the Battle of Shiloh, this was the deadliest battle in American history up to that date. The surprise attack at Shiloh paid off initially, as Union troops were put on the defensive. However, the arrival of Union General Don Carlos Buell's forces proved to be the turning point. The next day, the Confederates began the long withdrawal back to Mississippi, having amassed over 10,000 casualties in the death of its commanding general, Albert Sidney Johnston. After Johnston's death, General Beauregard took command. Several weeks later, Beauregard was replaced by General Braxton Bragg as the commander of the Army of Mississippi. In November 1862, Bragg incorporated most of the veteran troops of Shiloh into the Army of Tennessee, a name it would retain for the rest of the war. Other units were incorporated into the new Army of Mississippi, commanded by General Leonidas Polk, which operated most commonly as a corps within the Army of Tennessee. The Army of Tennessee fought in many of the war's most significant Western battles, including Shiloh, Perryville, Stones River, Chickamauga, Chattanooga, and the Atlanta Campaign. At its peak, it numbered over 70,000 men. Though disease, desertion, and battlefield losses steadily reduced its strength over time. Leadership was a persistent challenge. The Army was commanded by several generals, most notably Braxton Bragg, whose tenure was marked by internal disputes and inconsistent battlefield success. Later commanders included Joseph E. Johnston and John Bell Hood, under whom the Army adopted increasingly aggressive tactics, often at great cost. Despite moments of tactical success, such as the Confederate victory at Chickamauga in 1863, the Army of Tennessee struggled to achieve lasting strategic results. Crushing defeats at Chattanooga, during the Atlanta Campaign, and finally at Franklin and Nashville in late 1864, effectively destroyed the Army as a fighting force. By the war's end in 1865, the Army of Tennessee symbolized both the determination of Confederate soldiers in the West and the strategic difficulties the Confederacy faced outside of Virginia. Louisiana made an important contribution to the Confederate Army of Tennessee by providing experienced infantry, elite artillery, and capable leadership. The core of this contribution was Gibson's Louisiana Brigade, composed mainly of the 13th, 19th, 20th, and 25th Louisiana Infantry, which served almost continuously from 1862 to 1865 and fought in nearly every major battle, including Shiloh, Chickamauga, Atlanta, Franklin, and Nashville. Louisiana also supplied the famed Washington Artillery of New Orleans, one of the Confederacy's most respected artillery units. In addition, Louisiana officers such as Brigadier General Randall L. Gibson and General P.G.T. Beauregard played key leadership roles in the Western Theater, making the state a significant and enduring contributor to the Army of Tennessee.